A very special crossover episode of Cardinal Territory and Crush City Territory. I am so excited. My name is Katie Wu. I'm the host of Cardinal Territory here with Chandler and Tyler Stafford, co-hosts of Crush City Territory, both presented by Foul Territory. Guys, how are you? So nice to see you.
I'm doing great, Katie. I highly recommend taking an airplane with no air condition for 2 hours to St. Louis. It was a really revealing and an uplifting experience that I had to get into your city this afternoon.
Are you so excited to be in St. Louis, though? When was the last time you were here?
So the last time I was here, and I think Tyler will remember this this sequence. I remember the last time I was here because Tony Kemp got DFA'd, and it was it was a bad day for Astros Twitter, which Tyler is a huge part of. Tony Kemp was the vibes guy. He created like a whole T-shirt for hugging guys after they hit home runs. But I think it was right after the deadline, and they had a lot of roster. He got squeezed off the roster, and he got DFA'd here. And this is not an exaggeration. I walked in the visiting clubhouse at Busch Stadium, and it felt like a morgue because he was that loved in there. I mean, you hear it all the time that there's glue guys and there's guys that are indispensable. Like Tyler, Tony Kemp was that guy. So that was the last time I was here. It was in 2019 when Tony Kemp got DFA'd.
Yeah, Tony Kemp ruled. He was on the hooks when I worked there, and he was so fun. And he's the only player, I don't know if they do this a lot. I would imagine no. But he got a day off or maybe even 2 days off in the middle of the season because somehow, while still playing minor league baseball, he finished his degree from Vanderbilt, and he got to go back to the graduation ceremony. And so that was a big deal. But yeah, Tony Kemp rules. That's a terrible memory. How dare you bring that up?
I remember Ryan Presley blew a save. I do remember Ryan Presley blew a save and blew us off in the clubhouse at Busch Stadium. That's the other thing I remember about being at Busch Stadium. So I haven't been here in a while, Katie. Do they still have the horsies come out and run around the warning track every game?
No, just on opening day, but it is the highlight of the season. I mean, expectations were low coming into the year, but they have the Clydesdales for opening day. I'll do my best to make sure that your trip to St. Louis goes better than my trip to Houston last year when my suitcase never arrived and I had to go get 3 days worth of clothes at Target. And I showed up to then Minute Maid Park with a Target shopping bag as my backpack. And I just didn't have a computer. I didn't have my credentials. I just had my iPad. So that was such a great trip. I really enjoyed Houston.
You did introduce me to Jim Edmonds on that trip, and I mean, full disclosure, I was a Cardinals fan growing up because Mark McGwire was my favorite player growing up, and so I just became a Cardinals fan. And meeting Jim Edmonds was I'm not going to sit here and say one of the coolest things ever, but just seeing a guy that I watched so much in my childhood, that was thank you for introducing me to Jim Edmonds.
You're so welcome. I try to help my friends out when I can. This is exciting series for me. It's always fun when your friends are at the ballpark. Cardinals-Astros, one-time division foes, now not so much, but a lot of history between these two clubs. The Astros are they're fresh off a series win over the Angels. Cardinals fresh off a series win over the Phillies. Guys, what was your big takeaway from the weekend matchup against Anaheim? They're always going to be Anaheim to me.
They remembered how to hit, which was nice. It's been a little while since the Astros remembered that they were allowed to hit, and so they had a big old 14-run game. They did immediately forget to hit afterwards, which
right.
Chandler, I feel like all of my Astros friends, you've rubbed off on them too much because
that's great.
As soon as they scored 14, I was at a 1-year-old's birthday party, and my friend Matt was like, yeah, man, they scored so much yesterday. They're going to get shut out today. And I'm like, come on, man. And so I was thinking of him the whole time until the Astros broke up the shutout in the 8th inning or whatever of that game. But yeah, they look good over the weekend, and it was their, the back end of the rotation too. So to be able to win a series with, the 3 guys that you have the biggest question marks, I mean, especially with Ryan Gusto going and being a spot starter, I thought they looked really good over the weekend.
Yeah, I thought it was, 2 outlier games and then a game that's going to be kind of how they have to do things. The 14-run game, 16 hits, that's an outlier game. they got it going. They had their best offensive night of the year, and that's just going to happen some days. And then the next day, they got shut down by a crafty Tyler Anderson who has given them fits in the past. He's a guy that they have not seen well before, and kind of knew it was coming. Joe Espada played the infield in with 2 on and no out in the first inning of that game, which should have told you that they did not think they were going to score many runs, and he was prophetic. They did not. They scored 1 run. I think today's game we're recording this on Sunday. I think Sunday's game was probably kind of more of what this team is. It was 5 singles and an Isaac Paredes 3-run homer. This is a team that is still not slugging a lot, but the one thing they are doing, and Tyler, I mean, you from watching them last year to this year, their at bats look night and day as far as like taking pitches, like walking. They're striking out too much, but they're seeing like a ton of pitches. Like the at bats look so much better this year than they did at any point last year. And like at some point, it's going to translate into runs, but like right now, they're putting all these good at bats together, and they're just not getting a ton of big hits. And Paredes had one into the Crawford boxes. Tyler, he may hit like if they played 162 games in the Crawford boxes and in Dyken Park, he would hit 55 home runs. Like,
yeah,
it's incredible.
And 48 of them would be home runs in like 3 ballparks. So yeah, he's definitely making the most of the Crawford boxes.
Yeah. Shout out to Matt Kawahara, the Houston Chronicle. He pointed out this stat. It's publicly available, but he's the first one to find it. Isaac Paredes' 3 homers in this series. All 3 of them would have all been homers in only 2 ballparks in the major leagues.
Yeah.
Dyken Park and Fenway Park. So Isaac Paredes is perfect for Dyken Park. He's going to pull a ton of balls into the Crawford box. He's going to see a lot of pitches. He keeps improving. The plate discipline is obviously there, and he keeps looking better and better as Katie. He is the Astros third baseman. That could have been another person at some point this winter.
Yeah, as you were describing his swing, I was thinking, I know someone whose swing profile mirrors that and was maybe almost an Astro. But we'll get into all of the Nolan Arenado discourse because there's a lot to talk about. And for a long time over the offseason, I thought this series would have a lot more meaning than just your typical early April matchup between an interleague series. Because I really thought that at one point Nolan Arenado was going to be an Astro, and so did so many other people. So we'll get to that. But first, a message from our friends at Nutrafol.
Hair thinning is very common, very frustrating problem that many men deal with. From stress and nutrition to hormones to lifestyle, so many internal factors affect what you see on the outside. Luckily, Nutrafol is here to help.
Thinning hair is different for men and women, so a one-size-fits-all approach to their hair growth doesn't cut it. Nutrafol has multiple formulas for men and women that are tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
Start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code FOUL. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code FOUL.
All right, guys, let's just get into it. Nolan Arenado is the third baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals still. It was a long discourse, Chandler, as you and I both know. On top of that story, pretty much was the topic of our entire offseason. So you at least had some actual news. I did not. My biggest story of the offseason was the trade that never happened. And I think Nolan and the Cardinals deserve some credit here because this easily could have been a situation in spring where it's an ordeal and it's problematic. You have a player who the organization was not shy about wanting to trade, still coming to your organization when position players report. And I think both the team and the player have done a nice job of putting this behind him. But of course, this series is going to raise some questions. But it's looking at the Astros right now. I mean, did they really need him?
Well, the thing that is a little misleading is they would have Isaac Paredes no matter what, because the plan was to acquire Nolan Arenado and move Isaac Paredes to first base, and Nolan Arenado would have played third base. They have Christian Walker because they don't have Nolan Arenado. And Christian Walker, as Tyler knows, has been pretty awful. It's 15 games, but he has not acquitted himself well. His first 15 games as an Astro, he's chasing a lot out of the strike zone. He just hasn't produced, and he's in the cleanup spot every day. So it is a little kind of misleading that it would be a different setup in that way. They'd still have Isaac Paredes, but I think the Astros were intrigued by, first of all, Nolan Arenado is, if not the best defensive third baseman of his generation, right up there with Matt Chapman. They were intrigued by the defense because their priority all winter was to get their infield defense better. It's why Jose Altuve's in left field. It's why they pivoted to Christian Walker, who's a 3-time Gold Glove winner at first base. Their priority was defending on the infield better. And that was what Nolan Arenado was going to help them do. I do know that, and Katie, you can speak to this more than I can because you're around him more, but there was a lot of intrigue about Nolan plays with an edge. He plays with, he's got a tenacity and kind of an edge about him that I think there were some people in the Astros organization that thought that this clubhouse needed that. They needed a different kind of edge, a different kind of, almost arrogance. I'm not, again, I've never met Nolan Arenado, so I don't want to call him arrogant by any means, but he's got some swag and he's got some aura about him. And Alex Bregman was a lot of those things too. And they knew in the back of their mind they were never bringing Bregman back. So they needed somebody to kind of replace that. And Nolan, to them, looked like the guy that could provide that. And as Katie, as you and I both know, the trade was pretty much on the 1-yard line. It just needed that one little thing to happen. He needed Nolan Arenado to say yes, and he did not.
He did not say yes. I agree with you. He definitely has an edge. The word that I use to describe Nolan Arenado is intense. And that can come off maybe from an outside perspective as a negative perception, but it's really not. I think it's a testament to just how locked in he is, how committed he is to ensuring that he is at the highest level every day. The student takes no days off, no plays off. He's constantly mimicking his swing any time of the day, whether it's, and I've seen it, whether it's 5 hours before game time, he's taking BP after the games like a true baseball sicko. He's mimicking his stance in his hotel room at 2 a.m. He's sending video to his teammates about his swing, like, hey, what do you think? What can I do better here? He just, I think, lives and breathes baseball. And that comes across in his play. I'm not saying that he's like the warmest teammate, but I think as he gets a little older, he turns 34 this Wednesday, and he kind of sees where the Cardinals are at in their weird transition development period. He's kind of had to embrace the leadership role, although he leads differently than your typical like gung-ho, hey guys, that's not Nolan. Nolan's like, hey, play better and I got you. So I think he would fit in fine on an Astros club because of their championship pedigree, their winning ball club. We already talked about the swing. I thought the Astros really represented a lot of what Nolan was looking for, but as we know, the unclarity about Alex Bregman returning and Kyle Tucker being traded days before did not help the situation. I know we've said this before. You guys have said it on your podcast. I've said it on mine. Nolan never said no to the Astros. He just said not right now. But of course, Houston has every right to say, we can't wait on you. We're going to go sign Christian Walker. And now here we are. We'll see how he does against what could have been his organization, his new team.
Tyler, it's interesting to have all the what ifs. What would you have like if Nolan Arenado would have said yes? Like how much different do you think this team? I mean, it's 15 games. We can't really like extrapolate a ton of what we've seen, but how do you think the complexion of this team would have looked differently if Nolan Arenado would have said yes?
I mean, from a long-term standpoint, I think the Astros are better off having, Isaac Paredes and Christian Walker locked up in the corner for, 3 or 4 more years. I think, like we said, it's been 15 games, but I think if you extrapolate over the next 3 or 4 years, that probably puts them in a little bit more of a flexible and consistent place. But I mean, Nolan Arenado is so much fun to watch. Like, like that. He's one of those guys that we talked about with Kyle Tucker too, that like rewards you for watching every day, like every at bat or, every grounder to third, you are rewarded for watching. And there's something to be said about having those guys on your team. But I do think the way that it shook out, it ended up probably being better off for the Astros that it didn't end up happening.
There's another member of the Cardinals clubhouse that could have been an Astro. And this one, Tyler, this is going to be kind of a deep cut that we need to talk about.
I got a deeper cut for you after you do this one.
Oh, wow.
I have no idea where we're going. I'm scared.
Do you remember when Jim Crane and Dusty Baker just said, we don't want Wilson Contreras for Jose Urquidy?
Oh, yeah.
I sure do remember that.
I forgot about this.
So in response to that, James Click had to pivot and trade for Christian Vasquez from the Boston Red Sox, who Christian Vasquez caught a no-hitter in the World Series. Like, let's first state that like he was a massive part of the Astros 2022 championship World Series title. Like, you can argue whether they win it without him or not, but he was a huge part of that. The two prospects that they gave up for 2 months of Christian Vasquez were Emmanuel Valdez and Wilyer Abreu. Wilyer Abreu, who won a Gold Glove in right field last year, who looks like the next among a very large contingent of young players in Boston that Chaim Bloom found a way to get. We've got so many tentacles here. Wilyer Abreu would be this team's starting right fielder right now without a shadow of a doubt if he were still an Astro. And you kind of think back to, well, if they just get Wilson Contreras at the deadline, they give away Jose Urquidy, who we now know is often injured, get non-tendered. It's one of those kind of what-if moments, Tyler, that makes you think, like, how much would this team look so much different? Like, we spent a whole winter talking about how this team has no outfielders. They have 2 infielders playing outfield right now. If that trade goes differently, they have a bona fide right fielder, Wilyer Abreu, that's winning a Gold Glove and that's putting up huge numbers.
You probably have Yiner at first too, right?
Maybe,
like you're moving people around.
Or Wilson.
You sign a catcher for $87.5 million for 5 years, and then after 2 years, you're like, just kidding, not catching anymore. Only in St. Louis, guys.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my deeper cut. I don't even think you were around for this, Chandler, but in 2017, every single person on the internet wanted the Astros to trade for Sonny Gray. And that was a big rumor at the time, all of the different fake trade scenarios. But I feel like it happened in several more times, but there was like a 2 or 3 year stretch where it seemed like anytime someone in the Astros rotation was struggling, it was like, well, why don't you trade for Sonny Gray? Why don't you sign him? So for whatever reason, I will always think of Sonny Gray as an almost Astro, even though nothing, I don't think, was ever close to that.
Well, I saw Wilyer Abreu beat up on the Cardinals last weekend in Boston. Can confirm he is a legit talent. And you guys will see Sonny Gray tomorrow against Framber Valdez. So I don't know. It's weird. I guess I didn't realize how many connections there were between Houston and St. Louis. And we didn't even talk about the best one, Phil Maton. What a pickup that has been. I'm so serious. Look, it's not like the Cardinals made a ton of free agent signings. They made literally one, and it was Phil Maton. But if you're going to make one signing, make it a good one. And 2 weeks in, he has absolutely solidified that back end of the bullpen the Cardinals already have. Ryan Helsley, one of the best closers in the game. Tell me if you heard this before. The Cardinals really love their veterans, and they really like having that veteran presence in the bullpen. And they just really felt like they should go get one. And they chose wisely with Phil Maton. He's fit right in. I know, Chandler, you know Phil well. He's done a nice job in that setup man role, usually in the 7th or 8th, depending on the opposite-handedness of the team that he will be facing. But so far, so good for Maton, and he definitely looks like he's fitting in.
Yeah, and he does it very differently, which I think it takes a lot of people to get used to, that he barely throws 90, that it's, a lot of spin. One of my favorite memories with Phil is he legitimately had an argument to be MVP of the 2021 World Series if the Astros would have won it, because none of their guys hit, and he got like every massive out. Like, he was incredible in the 2021 World Series, to the point where, like, he came to one of the pregame press, like, you're supposed to send like a notable player up to the pregame press conference in the World Series. They sent Phil Maton up, and Phil, his nickname on Baseball Reference is Spin Rate. And so I asked him, I was like, Phil, does anyone call you Spin Rate? And he was like, no. So remember Players Weekend, when Players Weekend used to exist? I think it still does exist, but when it was cool, when they could all put the nicknames on the back of their jersey, he was a rookie in San Diego, and he didn't get to choose his nickname because he was a rookie. And, the nickname on the back of his jersey was Spin Rate. and Baseball Reference took that to be his nickname. So, but yeah, Phil does it. It was actually pretty funny. Dana Brown actually unprompted. I was talking to him for a story in spring training, and I ended up writing this that, I was asking Dana, like, what's been the biggest adjustment from going from a very much a scouting lean that he has. Came up as a scout to being in a GM role and a hybrid and kind of an organization that's very analytically forwardly thinking. And he said, well, Phil Maton's the best example because, like, I watched him pitch and I didn't know how this guy got anyone out. And then I had to go ask all the R&D guys and all like the advanced guys, and they showed me like, oh, it's the spin rate, it's the extension, it's all the stuff that you don't think about. And Dana Brown said, so from that minute on, I started calling Phil Maton the Magic Man. Because
that's way better than spin rate.
Right. So maybe it should be maybe spin rate should be the Magic Man. But yeah, Phil Maton, sneaky good pickup. I cannot believe he did not have a job until like March.
If I were a GM, every offseason I would just sign Phil Maton and Charlie Morton to a 1-year deal, and then I would go into the Hall of Fame for being the best GM of all time. I don't know why no one has figured out. Just give those guys money every year, and it'll probably work out.
What's crazy about Maton is the Cardinals signed him on like March 13th, and he had maybe a 2-week runway to get ready and fully ramped up for the season because they were planning for him to be in that setup man role come opening day. And Phil's like, oh yeah, I'll be fine. I won't need much. And he threw on the backfields twice, appeared in one spring training game, and then came out for, I believe, the 8th inning on opening day. And it was great. And I was like, all right, yeah, this is not how I would recommend necessarily navigating an offseason. But again, if you're going to make one signing, you better nail it. And so far, so good for Phil Maton, who is a big fan of Chandler's. As I didn't know how to introduce myself, so I name dropped you.
Oh man.
Oh, my friend Chandler. He knows you.
You got to be careful with that. It worked out with Phil Maton, but
yeah,
may not work
out for now. Still plenty to talk about, and I'm interested to see on your guys' perspective on what the heck the Cardinals are doing, because I'm sure it doesn't make a lot of sense from an outsider perspective. But first, let's hear from our pals at FanDuel Sports Network.
That was a legit ad.
That was real. That's FanDuel money right there.
You think I could write the Astros one, Chandler? I'm a musician, so I feel like if they need one, hit me up. I'm ready to go.
You got to get FanDuel to buy them first, and then
deal.
Yeah.
Then you're set. All right, guys, what do you think about I know, Chandler, we spent all spring training together, Astros and Cardinals, very close out in Florida, but I'm interested to see your guys' take on what the heck the Cardinals are doing, because for so long they've been one of the premier teams in the National League. Of course, it hasn't been that way over the last 5 years. Their player development system has kind of fallen through the cracks, which is crazy to think about, because for so long the Cardinals exemplified what it means to be a draft and development club and then succeed at it. But now they're kind of like walking the middle. They still want to win, but they're not spending a lot of money. And they're just relocating it to the minor leagues. So they're not spending a lot on their major league payroll, I should clarify. They can kind of get away with this plan because they play in the NL Central, but it's just not something you see a lot. Their transition plan with longtime president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak, he's stepping down, Chaim Bloom taking over. It just seems like an organization that's kind of stuck and doesn't know which direction it knows which direction it should go, but doesn't really want to go there yet because it doesn't want to pivot on winning. As you can tell, not a lot makes sense. Is it as confusing to you as it is maybe to other people who are not around the Cardinals every day?
A little bit, but I cover an organization that fired a World Series winning general manager and let its owner run baseball operations for 3 months. So like I'm used to weird, but I still can't get over that. Like John Mozeliak, did they fire him, or is they just not getting his contract's just not being renewed? Right?
No, they offered him extension after the 2022 season. It was the first week of spring training in 2023, and his current deal expires after 2025. And I think he's been looking at stepping down for a while. It's popular to dunk on Mo right now because the team is not good, but his job at the end of the day was to make his bosses, the DeWitt family, a lot of money, and he definitely did that. You can absolutely take exception to where the team is right now because it's not in a great place. But Mo's been here for so long, and I think he was looking to step down in the near future. And the kind of collapse of this team in 23 and the subsequent collapse of their player development over the last few years just kind of made this an easier transition. So he was not fired. He was never going to be fired. He was always going to kind of have the ability to go down on his own terms.
Okay, so I'm still confused as to why he's still running the offs. Like, they had a huge thing to do this offseason. That was to trade Nolan Arenado and then possibly trade other high-priced veterans on their roster. I'm unclear why they let a lame duck baseball ops employee try to do that when Chaim Bloom is here and like could have helped, could have had input. Like, that to me is unclear. But I also like I'm wondering too, like, you know, we've talked about all these Astros connections that they have. Like, let's not forget that Jeff Luhnow and Mike Elias and Sig Mejdal all like started their tenures in St. Louis before they all came to Houston. So like, did it all kind of fall apart? Like when they all like, did it start to erode like once they left and came to Houston and like instituted what they did and obviously like built a dynasty? Like, did they just like kind of, was it an inertia thing where they just kind of presumed that like whoever was coming behind them would just sustain what they had done and it just didn't happen that way?
It's a great question. Here we are again with the Cardinals-Astros crossover. There's so many hidden links between these two organizations. The Cardinals in the early 2010s were like the textbook of building your club out of player development and being successful at it. And a lot of those people you just mentioned were instrumental in that process, but then went to Houston and started their own. And the Cardinals kind of lost all of that. And it's not to say there weren't talented people in the organization, but the backbone, that foundation that was supposed to work alongside Mo to ensuring that this player development factory kept turning out talent kind of split up all over the place. So I think the Cardinals always had the resources, but then they started trying to invest more in their major league club because they were having trouble staying up with, you know, the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Padres, the Mets, because they aren't in markets like that. St. Louis is, though the fans are rampant and it is a baseball town, it's a small market. So they felt like they had to redirect all of their money to free agency and supplementing the club. And they essentially drained player development dry. They cut positions. They lacked adequate technology, adequate staffing. And I think if those people that you mentioned were still in the organization under, you know, didn't go to under Luhnow to the Astros, or again, if you're Mike Elias and Sig to the Orioles eventually, I don't know if they would have allowed that to happen. Though maybe that's not fair. I think there was definitely pushback from Mo about, hey, we need to keep investing in player development, but not nearly enough. Otherwise, the Cardinals wouldn't be here. But it is interesting to see the parallels between where the Cardinals are and where the Astros are, their differences in their farm systems. You can definitely see the impact of St. Louis in Houston, though I think it's fair to say that Houston has excelled much more than the Cardinals have in the last 10 years.
Is this a safe space to say somebody needs to tell Dana Brown to change his passwords after this series?
You said it, not me.
Where is Chris Correa now, I wonder?
David Eckstein 2 or whatever it was.
David Freeze 4.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that was before my time.
Oh, I'm so glad I didn't have to touch that.
That would have been, that would not have. Can you imagine you and I working on that together?
Oh, no, I don't even want to think about that.
After the offseason we just had?
You mentioned the Cardinals being in kind of a weird place. As a 30-something guy who grew up in Houston, I don't believe the Cardinals are dead until they are buried in the ground. There is strong devil magic that they use to sneak into the playoffs and then magically be good. So I'm not buying any of this about the Cardinals not being good until I see it in game 162, because I've seen it too many times growing up here to believe anything else.
Yeah, Katie, you just said like they play in a bad division. I mean, the Cubs are pretty good. The Cubs are pretty good, but like Justin Steele blew his arm out.
Just Justin Steele, that's huge.
That's not great. Like the Brewers are gonna mess around and win 85 games somehow. Like if this team is like within 4 or 5 games of first place, like if they can somehow be in contention at the deadline, like are they gonna add? Like what? Like how is this gonna go if like they do? Because they've played pretty well to start this season. And like you look at the roster, like this is not like a team of nobodies. Like, I mean, Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, like Sonny Gray, Ryan Helsley, like, and there's good players here. Like, what happens if they're like if you get to June or July and this team's like sort of in it, like, are they going to add at the deadline, or is this like a total punt year?
No one has said this in the organization, at least, but I feel it in my heart and soul. If the Cardinals just hover around 500 coming into the trade deadline, being around 500 is very much a contention in this division. I mean, you said it, Cubs, they're good, but they've had some key losses. The Brewers are the Brewers. I know the Cardinals just lost a series to the Pirates, but whatever. And you can't convince me on the Reds. Every year people try to convince me that the Reds are it. And every year I'm like, not really. So if you're 500 and you're the St. Louis Cardinals coming into July, coming into right around the trade deadline, I firmly believe they're adding. Not to the extent where it's going to derail their youth movement plans or it's going to put Heimblum in somewhat of a bad spot. But you think John Mozeliak's going to go out like this? You think he's going to go out getting booed at opening day where his legacy is like, oh, this guy ran the Cardinals into the ground, which is unfair, but this is a what have you done for me now industry. No, if there's any chance that the Cardinals can compete in the second half of the season, for whether that be for a wild card berth or a division title, the organization is going to go for it in the most Cardinal way possible, the same way they've done the last couple of trade deadlines when they were in it. They're going to incrementally, like marginally improve. It worked for them in 2022 when they traded Harrison Bader for Jordan Montgomery and then got Jose Quintana from the Pirates. Didn't really work for them in 2024 when they traded Tommy Edman, known power hitter Tommy Edman, by the way, for Eric Fetty and 3 weeks of Tommy Pham. That was a fun experience for me. But that's how the Cardinals buy at the deadline. And to an extent, I get it, because if you're the St. Louis Cardinals, you should never punt on a season. I commend them for not totally rebuilding, though I agree with you, Chandler. I think the way that they're operating right now is peculiar. But my concern is, how do the Cardinals stay 500? And if they do, how would that impact Heim's plan? Because I'm sure what he envisions for the organization is not the same as what Mo is currently envisioning, and it's not supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I can't fathom, like, and you've written this and talked about this, like the attendance is down too. Like no one's going to these games either, and like it's when you can't get fans in St. Louis to go out to games, like that's a pretty dire indictment of what's going on. But like you just said, like if this team is around 500 in June or like, and if they start playing well, like fans will come back. And then it's like, what are you going to reward these people with on July 31st? If like you're in striking distance, you're going to stand pat or go like get a 6th inning reliever, like, and that's going to be your only addition. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, hell, you may see the best rental starter available at the deadline pitch at Busch Stadium on Monday. If the Astros aren't in it, if they're out of it, Framber Valdez is right up there with Sandy Alcantara on the deadline, sweepstakes. I think the Astros will be in it, so I don't think Framber will be dangled in trades. But like, you look at that, I mean, that's what they would go after, like the most enviable rentals, right? To not put to try to go in on this season and to not put Heim in a bad spot next year, and to still have some roster space available for this quote unquote youth movement that they can't do because they didn't trade anybody this offseason.
Correct. Yeah. Make it make sense. Although I will say, just playing devil's advocate here, maybe some of the reason why Mo did or did not make these trades is because given what Heim did in Boston, trading Mookie Betts, maybe the Cardinals didn't want that to be Heim's first move, is coming over and then blowing it up, trading Arenado. Helsley, I think if there was a different president of baseball operations, would have been gone, considering 95% of the industry was very surprised when the Cardinals said at the GM meetings in November that they would not be trading Helsley. Everyone, myself included, kind of figured he'd be a no-brainer trade candidate, and Helsley felt the same way. And most hands were tied a little bit. Sonny Gray, full no trade clause. Wilson Contreras, same thing. Miles Michaelis, same thing. And then Nolan Arenado would have waived it for about 4 to 5 teams and ended up not. So weird.
There was one he wouldn't waive it for.
We know that. We know there was definitely one. We'll get into a little bit more of the next 3 days to come. But we need to do a segment, our player to watch segment presented by FanDuel Sports Network. And to me, it's pretty obvious who my player to watch is. It's Nolan Arenado. So he doubled today, first extra base hit in a while. To start the season, though, after 15 games he's played, in 14 of them, he is hitting .283 with an .802 OPS. He hit a home run on opening day, got a curtain call. That was a cool moment for Nolan, I think, just given what he went through over the offseason. But he's their cleanup hitter. His swing looks a lot better. He's never going to be satisfied with where he's at. But this is a guy that I'm watching because with the Cardinals down, Ivan Herrera, who was their best hitter to start the year, Wilson Contreras is slowly but surely coming out of that slump. They need some thump from the right side, and I think Nolan Arenado is going to bring it. So that's my player to watch. Do you guys have one in the series?
I'm going to say Hunter Brown because I just really like watching Hunter Brown pitch, man. Like,
you should watch Hunter Brown. That's the player to watch.
He'll start the middle game. He'll start on Tuesday. And I mean, I don't think the entire industry or the entire like sport as a whole like acknowledges like he is probably the best or second or third best like young starting pitcher that no one's talking about right now. Like he was incredible last year, from May 5th through the end of last season. Only Chris Sale and Paul Skeens had a lower ERA than Hunter Brown. He had a lower ERA than Tarek Skubal, who won the American League Cy Young Award unanimously. He's now sitting 98 pretty regularly in his first 3 starts. I wrote about that on The Athletic this week, that he didn't necessarily go into the offseason trying to increase his velocity, but wanted to get more mobile, wanted to get more flexible. And because he just focused on his mobility and his flexibility so much, he's now thrown 5 pitches this year, 99 miles an hour or harder. He had thrown 7 in his first 3 years in the big leagues combined. He is sitting like 97.5 and maintaining it throughout all these games. His sinker is 96 now. His breaking balls are legit. Like, he is really, really fun to watch. I'm not saying he's appointment television yet. This isn't like a clear your schedule, we got to watch Hunter Brown pitch, but he's getting there. Like he is really, really fun to watch. Tyler, do you have someone that is just as fun to watch?
Well, my first would be the ghost of Bud Norris. Growing up, that was Bud Norris just owned the Cardinals. And he was okay, but for whatever reason, he turned into Roger Clemens against the Cardinals. Anytime I see the Astros and Cardinals play, that's who I am thinking of personally. That's the kind of analysis I bring to this podcast. But I mean, the Astros lineup really seemed to be heating up over the weekend. And Chandler, you mentioned Christian Walker's gotten off to a really rough start, but he did draw 4 or 5 walks after having none through the first part of the season. He's still hitting the ball hard. And so it feels like that kind of initial breakout is coming for him. And I think if that domino can fall, I think the Astros lineup gets significantly better because of the pressure it takes off of all of the other hitters. And so that's who I'm really paying attention to right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Christian Walker went 47 straight plate appearances without a walk. Finally got one in Seattle, and he's looked better. But I would also offer that they're not paying him $20 million a year to draw walks. They would like him to hit the ball in the gap. They would like him to hit the ball out of the ballpark. And he should do that pretty quickly, because if he does, like you said, Tyler, the entire complexion of this lineup changes if they can get Christian Walker going.
Has Walker homered yet this year?
He has. He destroyed a hanging breaking ball from, I believe, Joe Ryan in Minneapolis, hit it off the second deck. And you kind of thought that was going to be kind of the exhale, like, all right, he's back. And then after that, it looked even worse, honestly, after that home run. So, again, the at-bats look better, but you remember the scene, Katie, have you seen Little Big League?
No, I'm bad at movies.
Tyler, have you seen Little Big League?
It's like the second podcast in a row you brought up Little Big League. Hit me. Come on.
Little Big League. Okay, so premise of the movie, I'm not going to get all into it, but a kid becomes the manager of the Twins. And when the kid is managing the Twins, there's a veteran player that was his favorite player growing up. His name was Jerry. I forgot his last name, but Jerry was his favorite player growing up. Obviously, old veteran player in decline. And they're playing together. There's a scene where they're in a game, and Jerry gets a seeing eye single, just bounces a ball through the right side, and Billy Haywood, the manager, leaps off the bench and starts so excited. And he's got this crusty veteran old bench coach that's helping him out, and bench coach taps him. He goes, "Kid, don't you think it says a lot when you're that excited about a CNI single?" And then they release Jerry the next day.
No, not Jerry.
So I'm not trying to say Christian Walker is in Jerry's spot, but the fact that we're sitting here like grasping at straws, like, oh, he's drawing walks. Yeah, it sounds like what we were doing with Jose Abreu a couple years ago. When it's like, oh, he hit a ball 98 miles an hour on a line. Yay! Like, now, like, you're making $20 million. Like, you better be doing more than drawing walks. So yeah, they need the moral of the story is he needs to produce, but it's 15 games. He'll probably be fine by the end of the season.
All right, so our players to watch. Let me just make sure I have this straight. Nolan Arenado, Hunter Brown, Christian Walker, and the ghost of Bud Norris. Perfect.
And Jerry from Little Big League.
And Jerry from Little Big League. Perfect. Okay, well, in case you guys missed it, you can now stream the Cardinals games through FanDuel Sports Network. And if you use the promo code baseball30, you can start it off with a 30-day extended free trial at FanDuelSportsNetwork.com/packages. This deal expires May 2nd, 2025, $19.99 a month after your free trial. Cancel during your free trial to avoid charges. Eligibility restrictions apply. Visit FanDuelSportsNetwork.com for details. Two things that you guys mentioned. Speed and young starters. And that's not something that the Astros will see for their next 3 days. Cardinals are throwing out the veterans. They'll have Sonny Gray on Monday, Eric Petty on Tuesday, and Steven Matz will make his first start of the season on Wednesday in the series finale. The Cardinals are going to a 6-man rotation on Wednesday. It's been their plan since the season opened. They are entering a stretch. There are 3 games in now to a stretch from April 11th to May 7th. They have 1 scheduled off day. So they're going to deploy the 6-man rotation. Matz has been fine in long relief. He actually had a really solid spring, but we'll see how he does in his first start. Again, these are not guys that necessarily throw a lot of velo at you. Sonny Gray's velo was down most of spring, but looks to be a little bit better now. They're contact guys. Sonny has swing and miss, of course, but yeah, you're not going to see youth and you're not going to see 97 from your starters. I know that.
Steven Matz throws with his left hand, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, the Astros have taken.
They're going to be confused.
Yes, the Astros have taken the fewest at bats against left-handed pitching of any team in baseball, and like the next, the 29th fewest is like 30 plate appearances ahead of them because the Astros have 1 left-handed hitter on their entire roster, and it is Jordan Alvarez. It's Jordan Alvarez who's very good, but
yeah,
they are all there. It's such a right-handed lineup that no manager in his right mind is going to go out of his way to throw a left-handed starter against him. Now it's going to line up in rotations. Well, it's going to line up in rotations.
I'm introduced you to the St. Louis Cardinals.
But I mean, yeah, facing a left-handed starter that's a big deal for an Astros team that. And you said that, and Tyler, you have to have noticed this throughout the first 15 games. Like they won't see a ton of velo. This team has seen nothing but like sinkers and just not junk. I don't want to dismiss like pitchers that do it a little differently, but like the Astros have just seen like they saw Kyle Hendricks today. They saw Tyler Anderson yesterday. Like they've seen are just like a lot of sinkers in on their hands and a lot of just junk. And they haven't really seen a ton of velo. And I think that honestly has contributed a little bit to their offensive malaise because like they've just seen such unorthodox kind of pitching to start this season that I think they'd welcome at this point, like just a normal like 4-seam and then curveball changeup. Like they'd welcome like a traditional kind of starter. Yeah,
for sure. They have definitely seen some interesting pitching, and the lefties that they have seen all have reverse splits. Yep. So they have not faced like a real true lefty this season. So I'm sure they'll be excited about that. One final cross-pollination here. You mentioned not having a ton of youth. You do have former Astros draft pick and TCU legend Luken Baker on the team. So he was drafted by the Astros in 2015 after winning Gatorade Player of the Year. This is while I was still at Texas A&M covering sports, and it was a very big deal that Luken Baker chose TCU over A&M. So you got him too. So we got all kinds of connections for the series.
And then hold on, Katie, you mentioned youth. We have a weird thing on our pod. We are contractually obligated. You mentioned Cam Smith.
I'm surprised it took 43 minutes, almost 44 minutes in for you to bring up Cam Smith.
Hang on, I got to put my chain on.
That's why Tyler's so antsy. Tyler is the president of the Cam Smith fan club.
The conductor of the hype train.
Yes, the conductor of the hype train. This is us mentioning Cam Smith to fulfill our contractual obligations.
Hey, did you see you hit a home run, Chandler? That was cool.
I did. He hit a pull side home run. He finally didn't hit something the other way. But Tyler, I mean, let's be real, like real quick, like 45 seconds to a minute. Like he did look better. He looked this series against the Angels, like you could tell, like it looks better. He's still got some growing pains in there, but he's looking better.
Yeah, he looks like a major league hitter. He's also good at right field, which is stupid.
Yes.
That's dumb. Like he was playing third base for Florida State last year. It's insane that he's good at right field. And he just is. Like he looks like he's done that his whole life. He's way faster than he should be for the giant that he is. And we've mentioned the Astros plate appearances looking a lot better. Cam Smith is another one. Every plate appearance, he might ground it into the dirt to second base, but he takes pitches really well. He's drawing walks. He's patient, and Cardinals fans get to see two fun corner outfielders for the first time with Jose Altuve playing left field. Hopefully, we'll see. I don't know. Does he get to play?
Oh yeah, Framber Valdez and Hunter are about to pitch. They're going to stick him in left field, and Jose Altuve's not going to have anything to do. He's going to
they're going to put a hammock out there for him.
He's going to bite his nails for 8 innings. Like he's going to have nothing to do the first 2 games.
Okay, so Tyler is very similar to Cam Smith as I am to Jordan Walker. So I get it. I
got my chain on just for him.
So
Come on.
I can't have the chain. But on this podcast, this is Jordan Walker Truther podcast. So I respect it. I respect that, you guys.
Chandler's a hater, but somebody's got to play the other side. It's embarrassing
there has to be a
for
good
him.
cop, bad cop in every podcast. And I'm not surprised Chandler's bad cop.
I was going to say, would you believe that Chandler did not have just unfettered joy about someone in baseball?
Unfettered
can't believe
joy.
it.
That's textbook Chandler. I love that.
That'll be on my tombstone. That'll be the first line of my obituary. Chandler Rome with unfettered joy.
I'll write your obituary unless I go down with you, which is possible.
Very, very possible this week.
I know. I can't wait. I love when my friends are in town. No one ever comes and visits me in St. Louis, but I would have murdered you if you didn't. So super excited for this Cardinals-Astros series, guys. This was fun. This was Cardinal Territory's first crossover episode. And honestly, I didn't think I did too bad with the producing. Longtime listeners, loyal listeners know that this is a fault of mine. I'm not exactly the best with the ad reads, but a lot of pressure with Crush City on. So I thought I brought my A game.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
You were better than the Cubs guys.
Don't
tell
they didn't even invite me. So
we'll tell Sahada and Mooney that.
I'm telling them. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. As always, you can follow Chandler at The Athletic on Twitter at Chandler Rome, Tyler at Tyler C. Stafford. I'm on The Athletic as well at Katie J. Wu on Twitter. Should be a fun series with these Cardinals and Astros, and we're ready to break it down from both sides. For the boys, I'm Katie Wu. Thanks for watching.
See ya.
Bye.